Tonight, a moment for the faithful to bid farewell. The sea of people in St. Peter's Square lining up for the chance to pay their final respects. Our Tom Yama is inside St. Peter's Basilica, where Pope Francis is now lying in state. Markets bounce higher as President Trump dials back the tough talk on the trade war and talks up a possible deal with China. My exclusive interview with the president of Harvard, his first since his school sued the Trump administration and took the lead in the resistance to the White House efforts to reshape America's universities.
What's a risk is the excellence of higher education in the United States.
The New Jersey wildfire that forced thousands to evacuate, neighbors rescuing animals from the flames, and firefighters battling to get the blaze under control. The missing Princeton student, where police are searching, and what they think may have happened to the undergraduate not seen since Saturday evening. The real ID deadline now just 2 weeks away. How the TSA is preparing and what you'll have to do at the airport if you don't have one. And will she or won't she? What Simone Biles is now saying about competing in the 2028 Los Angeles Games.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. The world is truly witnessing a moment at the Vatican tonight, a coming together over Pope Francis. This evening, scenes like this outside St. Peter's Basilica, where the faithful, the curious, and simple admirers have braved long lines and sometimes long journeys to see him and to say goodbye. It began earlier with a solemn procession from Casa Santa Marta, which Francis called home. Then his arrival at St. Peter's Basilica, met by spontaneous applause. And now tonight, the late Pope lying in state before he is laid to rest on Saturday. Pilgrims from around the world making their way to Rome to pay their respects. So many, it seemed, with a story or life-changing moment to share, all ahead of Saturday's funeral. Tom Yamas is at the Vatican. Tom, people still lined up there?
Lester, good evening. That is correct. Right now, people are still lined up. The viewing was supposed to stop at midnight. We've now blown past that deadline. And just moments ago, they turned on the lights here at St. Peter's Square, and we can see hundreds, if not thousands of people still waiting. We also want to give you a look inside the Basilica right now. This is a live look as the followers there are still lining up. It speaks to Pope Francis's impact and his popularity.
In St. Peter's Square, under an April sun, and with the world watching, Pope Francis entered the Basilica for the last time. The procession began with a prayer at his Santa Marta residence, led by the Camerlengo, American Cardinal Kevin Farrell.
Spes Christi, quia mortuus surrexit.
2 rows of cardinals then led the way through the square. 14 gloved pallbearers, lay people who work for the Pope, carrying his casket, flanked by the Swiss Guard. As a choir sang, his body entered the Basilica. The crowd of 20,000 applauded. His casket then placed in front of the altar. In a change made by Pope Francis himself, the casket wasn't elevated, but kept closer to the ground and closer to the people he served, who lined up by the tens of thousands outside. They waited for hours.
Why is this important for you?
He was a man of humility, peace,
and acceptance of everyone. He had a wide-reaching influence.
We met Chicago residents Trish Finnan and Pamela Brundage, who landed in Rome and headed straight to the Vatican.
It looks like the line is pretty long. You guys are willing to wait.
Yes, absolutely.
As they slowly marched around St. Peter's Square, they documented their hours-long wait.
We haven't made much progress, but we're smiling.
And as they waited, the Vatican also allowed us to enter and witness the sea of humanity flowing towards the altar.
Here inside St. Peter's Basilica, the Catholic faithful have waited for hours in the heat all day for this moment. They're now just steps away from Pope Francis, who is lying in state. They know they'll only get a few seconds, but it's worth it to say goodbye.
We saw believers, young and old, mothers carrying children, stopping to pay their respects. And as they emerged from the 16th century basilica, a range of emotions.
What was that moment like?
Extremely moving. Very moving.
emotional. Everything stopped when you got in front of him.
What's next for you guys now?
We haven't slept since night before last.
Glass of wine, some pasta?
Yes.
Exactly. And a toast.
So, Tom, what can we expect in the days ahead?
Lester, we know that the funeral is now going to take place Saturday, and many Vatican watchers believe that after Pope Francis is buried, the College of Cardinals will announce the start of the conclave. Lester?
Tom Llamas, thanks. Now to another big surge on Wall Street as President Trump appeared to soften his stance on tariffs against China. Peter Alexander has late details.
Tonight at two of America's busiest ports, Los Angeles and Long Beach, the president's trade war is already hitting hard. The number of ships set to arrive with imports from China in the first full week of May now expected to be down 44% from last year. Still, the market surged again today, the Dow up more than 400 points, after President Trump signaled a potential thaw in the turmoil over tariffs and optimism about new trade deals that he says will level the playing field for American companies and bring back manufacturing jobs.
We are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be fair.
He was pressed late tonight.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods?
Well, that depends on them. We've been ripped off by every country in the world practically, and friend and foe. And we're not doing that anymore. So.
The president today telling NBC News the U.S. is in active talks with China. But just minutes earlier, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said those talks have not yet begun. Amid confusion over the president's long-term tariff plans and following a Monday meeting where the CEOs of Target, Walmart, and Home Depot personally lobbied the president, President Trump appeared to soften his stance, saying his tariffs on Chinese imports will come down.
145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero.
But tonight, the White House says that will only happen through negotiations.
There will be no unilateral reduction in tariffs against China.
All of it as Elon Musk revealed his time at the president's Department of Government Efficiency will, quote, drop significantly next month as he refocuses attention on Tesla, that's seen its stock plunge more than 40% and been the target of violence and vandalism.
There's been some blowback for the time that I've been spending in government with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. I think the work that we're doing there is actually very important for trying to rein in the insane deficit.
Peter, you have new reporting tonight about more friction between Musk and members of the president's cabinet.
Lester, this latest episode, a shouting match last week here in the West Wing between Elon Musk and the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over leadership at the IRS, confirmed to NBC News by two senior officials here. The White House tonight responding that President Trump put together, in their words, a passionate team of people who they say sometimes disagree. Lester?
Peter Alexander at the White House tonight. Thank you. Meanwhile, the Trump administration continues its push to reshape higher education, with President Trump signing an executive order making changes to the university accreditation bodies and another calling for a review of colleges' financial ties with foreign donors. It comes as the Harvard University president is speaking out for the first time since the school sued the federal government. Did you have to take a deep breath before you agreed to file a lawsuit? That's a big step, especially given who you're suing.
It is a big step, and it was more than one deep breath.
That was a tough one.
It was tough.
Harvard President Alan Gerber on campus today, reflecting on the university's showdown with the Trump administration over its demands at the school accept government-ordered changes. Harvard accusing the administration of illegally withholding $2.2 billion in federal funding as a form of leverage. Among the list of the federal government demands, eliminate DEI programs, make broad changes to admissions and hiring practices. At the center of it all, allegations anti-Semitism on campus went unchecked. Is this really about anti-Semitism?
I would say that at Harvard, we have a real problem with anti-Semitism. We take it very seriously, and we're trying to address it. There's no doubt about the severity of that problem. We don't really see the relationship to research funding at Harvard and other universities. They are two different issues.
Garber said he had no choice but to fight back against what he believes is government overreach.
What they are indicating is that they want to directly review who we hire on our faculty. That has implications for what kinds of views can be expressed on campus. They also want to be able to tell us who we need to fire. And they also want to intervene in our admissions processes. That is what we are objecting to.
You're taking on the most powerful man in the world.
We are defending what I believe is one of the most important linchpins of the American economy and way of life, our universities.
How much pain can Harvard absorb here?
We don't know how much we can actually absorb, but what we do know is that we cannot compromise on basic principles like defense of our First Amendment rights.
Is this bigger than Harvard at this point?
Of course it's bigger than Harvard because we look at what's at risk here. And what's at risk is the excellence of higher education in the United States, and in particular, the research mission of many of our universities, which play such a vital role in the U.S. economy and in the health and well-being of the American people.
One of Harvard's programs at risk due to the funding freeze is tuberculosis research. If the funding were to be suddenly turned on, how quickly could you get back to your work?
It's a hard question because today we could start relatively quickly. 10 days from now, as the network unravels, the damage becomes irrevocable.
Is this a fight you can win?
I don't know the answer to this question, but the stakes are so high that we have no choice.
In a statement, the White House criticized Garber's comments and said, quote, President Trump is standing up for every student denied an education or safe campus because left-wing universities fail to protect their civil rights. Thousands were forced to flee after a rare and dangerous wildfire exploded near the Jersey Shore, burning more than 12,000 acres. Tonight, some homes remain under threat. Sam Brock is on the front lines for us.
After flames ravaged parts of southern New Jersey, bursting onto highways and spawning huge plumes of smoke, communities under siege taking solace in avoiding a worst-case scenario.
Folks' homes and lives have been saved, and we've truly averted a major disaster.
Officials say not a single house was damaged nor person injured after some 5,000 evacuated just miles from the Jersey Shore, some in the chaos of gridlocked streets, others helping neighbors move beloved animals.
These winds are not helping us today, and the fires are unpredictable, and when you have large animals, it makes it really scary.
The blaze now 40% contained, but some residents remain uneasy.
We're standing on your deck right now, looking at massive plumes of smoke, and you're thinking what?
Never seen that before and never expected that in my entire life.
Brian Frankshin lives in the Lacey Township community, where so many are stunned by the proximity of the smoke column.
We were going to start unpacking because we heard the mandates were lifted, and I don't think I'm going to unpack just yet.
Got that, and then probably over here, too.
Homeowners like Chris Muty aren't taking any chances.
What's your biggest concern?
The homes. I mean, the homes are right there. Their fence is all melted. These gentlemen over here, they're really the unsung heroes, I guess, because they found some buckets for us.
Tonight, the Garden State grateful after a close call. Sam Brock, NBC News, Ocean County, New Jersey.
We want to turn now to that urgent search for a missing college student from Princeton University, with school officials sending a new message to the campus today. Allison Barber has late details.
Tonight, police in New Jersey in a desperate search for any sign of 23-year-old Lauren Blackburn. The Princeton undergrad was last seen Saturday around 6 p.m. near a university library, according to public announcements from the school. And crews were recently seen searching near a lake. In an email, Princeton University confirming efforts are ongoing. A school official writing to the student body this morning, please hold Lauren in your thoughts as we attempt to locate him. On campus, students we spoke to were shaken.
It's just a shame because it's near the end of the semester, and this is really just like it's a dark thing to think about, you know, and it was kind of shocking to me.
Blackburn is originally from Indiana.
I think it'll be hopefully a lot more difficult at Princeton,
where the star student was profiled by an NBC station after receiving a full scholarship to attend the elite university.
It was a little stressful the last couple of weeks coming up to the AP test. I had 6 AP tests this year.
He skipped the 6th grade.
I don't think I was ever behind academically. I was a lot shorter than everyone in 7th grade, though.
And was beloved by his teachers.
He's kind. I have never, ever once heard him speak a bad word.
And Blackburn was last seen wearing blue jeans, a yellow T-shirt, and a black hoodie. Anyone with any information is asked to contact Princeton's public safety. Lester?
Ellison, thank you. In 60 seconds, the rush for the real ID. The clock is ticking to get one. What the TSA is saying to do if you want to fly. Next. With the TSA warning travelers they have just 2 weeks left to get a real ID, DMVs across the country are packed. If you don't have one by then, well, you better plan to get to the airport early. Here's Tom Costello.
If I can see your ID,
all right, may I see your ID?
See your ID, please.
At an airport near you, the real ID clock is ticking.
You have till May 7th right here to get a real ID.
TSA officers now handing out reminder flyers. Starting May 7th, you'll need a real ID if you're planning to fly.
You can use the passport, right?
Yeah, you still can use your passport.
A passport, green card, or military ID. At DMV offices nationwide, long lines and long waits for appointments to get a real ID.
About 2 hours in line.
New Jersey leads the country with the lowest compliance rate. New real IDs have a star, a California bear, or say enhanced in Washington state. But nearly 20% of current airline passengers don't have a real ID. 400,000 passengers a day. TSA is hoping not to turn passengers away. If you don't have a real ID and you don't have a passport, the TSA says plan on an extra 30 minutes for extra screening. The May 7th deadline coming just weeks before the summer travel season kicks off. So families going on vacation this summer, if they don't have a real ID, hopefully the vacation's not ruined. They should still get through security.
Absolutely, but also keep in mind that they may experience some additional screening going through the security process.
And bring extra forms of ID just in case, and make that appointment with your DMV. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
We have been warned. When we come back, harrowing moments on a Kansas highway caught on camera. Plus, will the greatest of all time give it one more go? What Simone Biles is saying next. In Kansas, a moment you have to see to believe. An SUV driving in the median of an interstate went airborne and overturned after appearing to hit a bump. Police dash cam caught the dramatic moment. The car flew up and flipped. A post from a member of the Kansas Highway Patrol says the driver wasn't hurt. Simone Biles is sharing an Olympic update. The most decorated gymnast in history says she's unsure if she'll plan to compete in the 2028 Games in Los Angeles. In an interview with a French magazine, Biles admitted the sport has taken a toll on her body, but she left the door open for yet another Olympic comeback. Finally, we turn back to Pope Francis, who meant so much to so many people around the world. But as Tom Yamas found, one of his relationships was especially sweet.
Near Vatican City sits a tiny shop, Edera, named for the ivy that grows on its walls. And here, the gelato is infallible.
Buonasera. Buonasera. Francesco.
For more than 100 years, Francesco Ceravolo's family has made delicious desserts, and Pope Francis, who had a sweet tooth, kept them busy.
We opened this shop in Rome with exactly the day to the election of the Pope.
Ordering everything, including custom-made desserts. And like the Vatican, this family also has its own secrets, refusing to divulge any recipes.
And you don't like to show how it's done?
It's impossible. My father probably killed me. In this case, you have lemon.
But he did let us come around the counter to sample his heavenly sweets, starting with two of Pope Francis's favorites, lemon and mango gelato.
Mango from Sicily.
Yes,
Let me try this
like
bad
the
boy.
texture.
Oh, It's like a beautiful mango.
Francesco says on Pope Francis's birthdays, he would request hundreds of cakes to share with the homeless, matching his own cake.
Not one cake, 300 different small cake for the homeless.
In all of his interactions with Pope Francis, Francesco says 3 things about him stand out.
Quiet, joy, and serenity.
A pontiff who preferred his gelato, like his life, simple. Tom Llamas, NBC News, Rome.
And that is Nightly News for this Wednesday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.